presenters. So first, I'd like to hand the floor over to Grant. Welcome. Thank you very much, Grant.
Thank you very much, Michael. On February 21st, over 6.6 million Yemenis came out to the polls to show their support for the GCC agreement and implementing mechanism. Most pundits and observers thought before the elections took place, one that many people deemed non-competitive, given that there was only a single candidate running, would result in a very low voter turnout. Some people estimates were somewhere between 15 and 30% at the generous end. But with over 55% of the estimated voting population actually casting ballots, a new era was ushered in Yemen. IFES reestablished its program, as Michael mentioned, in early January after an assessment mission in December, with a focus on supporting the Supreme Commission for Elections and Referendum to conduct the early presidential elections. At the time that we went for the assessment mission, there had not yet been a budget set by the government of Yemen. So the Supreme Commission was very much looking forward to international assistance to the greatest extent possible. Our work over the last couple of months has really taken the form of a number of areas. First of all, in terms of procurement, we assisted the SIR in repairing 24,000 metal voting booths that had been in existence for a number of years. We also procured over 26,000 new cardboard voting booths that were used primarily in the urban centers. And that procurement was actually sourced from a company in Taiz, which I think bodes well for future election procurement. We also procured 104,000 brassards, identification badges for security forces that were involved in protecting the the polling stations, polling centers. And these were done at the request of the SIR because they felt very concerned that they wanted to make sure that if there was a problem with the elections process and security personnel were involved in a negative, potentially negative way, that they would have some way of identifying who the perpetrators were. And so these brassards, these identification badges, were uniquely numbered, so it was very easy to identify who the personnel involved in any potential problems. I have to say that that there were no incidents, to our knowledge, that took place throughout the election campaign, which I think boded very well for the conduct of the security forces and the training that they had received prior to the election event. The other area that we also worked with the operations center at the election commission. We provided new information technology and communications equipment. We also had a technical advisor, security advisor there as well, who assisted with the training as well as looking at policies and procedures by the security force personnel through the elections, and in particular on election day. We had also put in place a media center at the Movenpick Hotel, and I have to say that this was probably the most visible of our assistance, and one that really provided a window onto the elections process, not just for Yemenis, but also for the international community. It was state of the art, and it built on work that IFES had done previously in Tunisia last year. It was very successful, and I think it ushered in a new era of cooperation, collaboration, not just with the SIR, but also with some of the other government ministries, and in particular the Ministry of Information. The Ministry of Information provided support to IFES and to the SIR by making visas very easily obtainable by the international community, the international journalists that were coming in to cover it. They also facilitated, and we were told this is the first time ever, actual broadcasting equipment was allowed in to cover an electoral event in Yemen. And the Ministry of Information actually had a team stationed at the airport, so when the journalists came in, they went through the visa process very quickly, expeditiously, and all their technical equipment came in without incident. So this was a very close collaboration, and as I said, it was, to me, it bodes well for the future. At the Media Center, the other thing that was put in place through the Public Telecommunications Corporation was a high-speed fiber optic line into the media filing room. This allowed journalists, both domestic and international, to file stories and photographs of events that took place at the Media Center or wherever they were covering their stories. And this was a huge advantage, and the feedback from all the different journalists was extremely positive. For the elections, there were over 120 international journalists that came in and covered the event, and over 300 domestic journalists were also registered for the Media Center. And IFES also, as part of its program, did some public outreach activities, one of which was the insert just days before the election, a 4-page insert in major dailies and weeklies around the country to show voters how to go about the process. Our focus right now will come in the post-election time frame between now and the end of this month on several other activities. First one is that we're going to be, we will have a voter registration expert come in. This follows on work that IFES has done when its office was open previously. The voter registry, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, is going to be very important going forward to these other electoral events. We're also going to be conducting, in collaboration with the Election Commission, a post-election assessment workshop. This will build on the work that's been going on. It was a very collaborative environment for these elections, not just with the SIR and the different ministries, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Information, but also with some of the international partners, UNDP, the National Democratic Institute. We all work together in trying to provide the SIR with as much assistance as possible. So this post-election assessment workshop will bring together all the different stakeholders from these different ministries, the civil society organizations that were involved in the election observation, political parties, to do lessons learned, to understand what worked and what didn't work, and how can things be improved given the electoral events that are going to be coming down the pipe in the next 2 years. The last thing that we're going to be doing in this time frame is conducting a nationwide survey. Again, getting attitudes and perceptions from voters who participated in the process about how they saw that process unfolding, whether they thought it was a positive experience, not so positive experience, etc. So that's something that we're going to be doing in the next few weeks. I think it'd be fair to say that while the general consensus was that the February 21st early presidential elections was conducted in a very open and inclusive manner, just about anybody that was involved in the process will also point out one important fact, that they now believe that the hard work is ahead. The next 2 years is going to be a very intense period of time. There's going to be a lot of engagement of the different stakeholder groups with the voting population, citizens, and the Election Commission itself is going to be very much at the center of a lot of these activities. In terms of the transition process in the implementing mechanism, really the SIR has a role in a couple of different ways. One, there's a referendum that's going to be coming up that needs to be conducted, in which the SIR will be responsible for. There will also be general elections towards the end of the process. And they need to make sure that they've got the various aspects of the process very nailed down. The other thing that will be coming out after the referendum will be the Constitution, will be new election laws and political party laws. So the SIR will be very much engaged in that as well. For the Election Commission itself, there's going to be a number of, in addition to these electoral events, there's going to be a number of other activities that they're going to be very engaged on, and I would say put these in the following priority. One, I mentioned earlier, was the voter registry. There are approximately 10.2 million voters on the registry at this point in time. It's acknowledged that the data set within that registry is not the most comprehensive. There are duplicates. The SIR just last fall eliminated about 104,000 names from that list, duplicates, etc., and it needs to be cleaned up. There is also approximately 2 million first-time voters, those that have come of age who were able to participate in the early presidential election, but they do not yet have they're not yet on the voter registry. So there'll have to be some attempt at bringing those voters into the voter registry so that they're going to be able to participate going forward. So this is the SIR is really going to have to look at, do they build a new list? I mean, there's some talk right now of a civil registry being put in place. Do they work with the civil registry? Timelines are short, so they need to know what the options are. The other thing too is, where are the funds coming from? Updating a voter registry or putting in place a new one is not an inexpensive exercise. So funds will have to be identified. The other thing that the SIR is very concerned with is restructuring the organization. It's approximately 700 employees right now. I think the Commission recognizes that it's not the most efficient enterprise, and they were looking to try to improve the performance as they go forward. So they're going to have to look at what's the nature of that restructuring, and making sure that those that remain are given the proper skill sets and knowledge base in order to do a job in a much more efficient and effective manner. So professional development will be a high priority going forward. Some of the other exercises that are going to be of concern to the SIR is boundary delimitation. It's been almost 10 years since a census was conducted, and it's well recognized that there are some census districts that are, and try to, I guess, level the playing field so that in improving access to the process, making sure that people understand what that process is, and with security environment in parts of the country. And that will, obviously, the security forces will need to deal with that. But there's also an opportunity to, given the controversy in terms of who heads up the security forces, there's an opportunity here to introduce some professionalism into the process and give specific training to security officials about how their roles and responsibilities in the electoral process. The final area will be working with we'll be trying to mitigate the use of state resources and the influence of state officials in the elections process. And so this is another area that's going to need to be looked at and addressed. I think that's really about it in terms of my remarks, and look forward to Q&A part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank